Howdy, everybody. My mic is not muted. Perfect. Matt RIZVI here on our Tuesday live stream. I know you're typically used to seeing Rich during these hours. I got to inform y'all, he is actually taking his daughter to drop her off at college at Syracuse, which, if that experience is anything like the situation going on at UNC Chapel Hill, he'll probably be back there in a week to pick her up and take her home. But in the meantime, y'all got the pleasure of getting me to fill in today and talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is building a following on social media. Now, I will be the first to tell you that I am not the social media or list building expert. However, when I was first starting my copywriting education and coaching business, like I shared in the email that y'all probably saw, I didn't, probably like many folks who are watching this now, I didn't have a big pile of cash that I could just go out there and spend on paid media. I hadn't really built out funnels, front end offer, back end offer yet. I really had just like a basic kind of lead magnet and a few trainings. I was trying to build out a course while also doing some coaching, and I was very much experimenting across the spectrum in my offers. And I hadn't really built up the connections yet with other folks in my space who knew of me and felt comfortable with my products and would be willing to partner on affiliate deals. So when it came to building a following and building a list, I didn't have a lot of options. And typically when folks are starting off, a lot of times they'll do SEO or something like that. And while SEO, has a lot of validity to it and its strengths, I really enjoyed the social media aspect and posting daily and getting engagement from my followers and from friends that I had met online. So today I want to kind of share with you what that experience was like. And like I said, I made plenty of mistakes along the way. So what I'm going to share is really what I think I did right, as well as what I did wrong. And if you are trying to get your business off the ground and you don't have all the infrastructure yet and you just want to get started, this is probably the easiest way to just hit the ground running and start building an audience, building a list, start building rapport and with your followers and things like that. So another caveat I want to mention though is, as you can tell, my setup is slightly more advanced than my normal recordings. I'm actually trying Ecamm Live here for the first time, just like Rich does. So if we have any technical difficulties, please forgive me and have give me some wiggle room on this, because this is my first time really using the platform. So I'll try to do what Rich does. As you saw, I had the countdown timer before the live stream started, and I haven't been able to figure out yet how to put the comments on the screen or have my transcribed the captions at the bottom. So just bear with me as we work our way through this and I kind of experiment here. Okay. All right. So for me, when I was getting started, I started building my following on Twitter. But I want to add a caveat here. As I mentioned, I did Twitter, but a lot of the strategies that we're going to talk about today, you can also be using on Facebook. You can probably be using them on Instagram. I'm still trying to learn Instagram. I'm started picking it up more recently. But like I said, I just want to share with you kind of the experience that I've gone through as a consummate student. And so hopefully you can skip some of the learning curve that I had to go through. But the reason I picked Twitter at first was I was on Ben Settle's daily email list, and I was in his Facebook group, and he would regularly write emails or post in Facebook with screenshots and references to folks on Twitter who were in a similar kind of internet marketing, copywriting space. And so I was like, that's interesting. Usually I just use Twitter for following the news And really today, that's all I use it for. I just use it to check up on my Washington football team and sports and things like that. But at the time, like I said, I was trying to figure out how I could leverage social media to build a following, gain traction without having to invest a lot of money in the process. And so I jumped on Twitter and I started following a bunch of folks who were talking about copywriting. They were talking about direct response and internet marketing. Some were e-commerce, some were info publishers. And I started seeing what they were doing to create engagement and build a following. And like I said, the same things that they're doing, you can be doing as well. And a lot of the principles of direct response actually apply very, very nicely to the social media world and the things you want to think about, like conventional direct response copywriting strategies, you'll see have a very large overlap when you're using social media. All right. So I'll give you some examples during this broadcast, and I'll share my Twitter with you, and I'll show you the different ways you can do posts, as well as what things you'll want to have on your timeline or in your banner and on your bio and description and things like that, and your pinned tweet, right? And while these things, like I said, are unique to Twitter, a lot of them have overlap on Facebook, and I'll talk about the ways you can take these strategies and apply them to Facebook as well. Before I jump in though and share you my Twitter account, I want to talk about like the reason why I chose Twitter over Facebook and what I like Twitter for, but also some advantages of Facebook as well over Twitter. So when it came to Twitter, what I really liked about the platform was that it allowed for the expression of ideas in a short form way. And I think Facebook has slowly started to evolve to be more like Twitter. Like when you go on Twitter and you're looking at someone's timeline, you'll notice, because of the 280 character limit, often you have to be very pithy, right? You have to be brief and you have to express an idea in a unique way that not a lot of other folks are expressing it. And that in itself requires the skill of copywriting. And I really liked how I could leverage my copywriting skills on Twitter in a short format, but I'll also show you how you can do it in a long form format in a minute. But there's also a slightly different expectation on Twitter. Like when you're on Twitter, at least this was the case at the time, and I think Facebook is kind of moving towards this, where on Twitter, you could follow someone that you'd never met before, and that was socially acceptable. So to follow someone, to like their tweets, to retweet their stuff, that is the understood, like that's the norm, right? Whereas on Facebook, if you added someone as a friend and you didn't know them, you're like, why is this person adding me? So there was a little bit of a difference there in what is socially acceptable in terms of engagement with other folks in your space on Twitter compared to Facebook. And at the time, I thought that was really powerful because it allowed me to engage with the people who are in my space, who were also influencers, who had larger followings than mine, and interact with them, and then have them, after we've had conversations or we've retweeted each other's stuff, or I sent them messages like asking them questions, or retweet their tweet and added more context to it, not to like contradict them, but to build on top of what they were saying, provide more value on their tweets, right? Then that created these connections very, very organically. And that allowed me to build up a network of folks on Twitter very quickly who were in the direct response space. They had e-commerce companies, or they were copywriters, or they were building SEO blogs, or people who were living either as freelancers or service providers, or building online businesses where they could work from anywhere. And so that was kind of a common thread that a lot of us had. And for the folks who didn't have followings yet, but wanted to become, gurus in their respective field, maybe people who are doing it professionally. So for my case, like I was saying in the email, I was a freelance copywriter. I was actively writing for many clients and making good money doing it, but I wanted to build my own personal brand at the same time. And so Twitter allowed me to tweet about my daily client life, what's going on with the struggles of working with some clients, bad client situations, big wins when I would land a new contract or something like that. And so it was very demonstrative as a service provider of like what I do, the benefits of being a freelancer, the benefits of being a copywriter, some of the perks, and also the challenges that went along with that. And by demonstrating and documenting my day-to-day life as a freelance copywriter, working remotely and getting to travel and be my own boss to a large extent, other people got to see that and wanted to learn more, right? Like, how do I get to achieve that lifestyle? And that allowed me to bring those people into my list, teach them about copywriting, and offer them products and services that help them do what I was doing. And I had that social proof on Twitter of me documenting my experience as the copywriter, but also the social proof of creating this network of like-minded individuals who were also in direct response online and creating their own small businesses, where we would retweet each other's stuff. It was very clear like who was in that in circle of folks, and people wanted to be in that in circle and engage with those gurus too. So, it was a collective of folks with shared ideas, and Twitter makes it very easy, like I was saying, to follow someone and to start engaging with them. So, if I'm starting, and compared to Facebook, right? So, Facebook at the time, like I was saying, Facebook at the time, it was strange for you to add someone as a friend. And even today when I get friend requests, I'm like, I don't know this person. I've never met you. Sure, we have lots of mutual friends, but why are you adding me? Like, so it's more taboo on Facebook to just add someone as a friend. And there's even a friend limit on Facebook, right? So there's a 5,000 friend limit on Facebook where now, they've added the follower feature to that. The one benefit I would say though of Facebook is when you add someone as a friend, like if you're trying to build a list using Facebook and you're going around adding, you're targeting your ideal prospects or influencers that you want to endorse you or you want to engage with to help share their credibility with you, then when you add them as your friend, if they accept it, right, then suddenly it's basically like you've added them to your list. Because now they're friends with you, you're friends with them, and when you post, they will see that, right? So as opposed to Twitter, where if you follow someone, they're not going to see your tweets, right? They'll notice that you followed them, but you're not going to have this reciprocal relationship where suddenly you're seeing each other's content. So that's the one advantage of Facebook, I think now, especially over Twitter, right? So if you're on Facebook, you can follow the same strategy and like add people as friends to help grow your list, as long as they accept your friend request. But suddenly that's a two-way street. They're going to see your content. You're going to see theirs, and it helps build that group, right? But to Twitter, so when I was first getting started, didn't have a list. My following was close to nil. It was really all about just posting every day. And this is going to sound terrible. Like when you're posting every day, Rich tells me about his fear of this all the time, of negative social proof, right? You're going to be posting and it's basically going to go into the ether and no one's going to see it. And you might get one like, right? And it feels embarrassing, but it's really part of the process. And it's something that you have to get over, because not just the practice of writing the posts every day, but fleshing out your timeline, figuring out what resonates with your ideal audience, what gets that engagement is absolutely critical. And for starters, what I would recommend, what I ended up doing when I was first starting to help build that list, is you just got to get impressions, right? So I'll show you my page in a second, but you want to build out your page so that the banner, the description, your photo, the pinned tweet at the top, all of that stuff should sell people on you as the expert in your field. Okay, so you don't just want a picture of like a pretty sunset, because that's wasted real estate. Your banner should have copy and a call to action even, and convey the message, your USP, your unique selling proposition. What do you do? Why should people follow you? You might even tell people to follow you, on your header, right in the banner. So use all of those pieces, those 3 pieces there: the banner, and I'll show you in a second here. The banner, your profile, your bio description, and the pinned tweet at the top. You want to leverage all of that to build your credibility, convey what your unique selling proposition is, like why people should follow you, why they should listen to your tweets, why they should opt into your list, and then provide value as well. Give people an opportunity, a call to action, right? Should they follow you? Should they click on a link to go claim a free report and opt into your list? But all of that stuff is like conventional direct response. And once you have that set up, once your profile is, and you don't have to spend a crazy amount of time on this. In fact, I would recommend just getting something up there. And that's what I did. Like, the copy was really bad at first, but it was better than nothing, because I didn't want to split that, just spend a lot of time designing the banners and things like that. But I got it done. And then as my following grew, I got better designs, and I made the profile description more clear and have more social proof, whatnot. But getting that set up where it conveys your USP, it builds credibility for you as the author, and then has some type of call to action, whether that's following you or going onto your list. Those are like the first steps, okay? Then once you have that done, once you have that set up, then I would use Twitter. Like, Twitter has great search features. And so there's lots of ways you can search Twitter to find people who are either your ideal prospect or influencers in your marketplace who you would like to connect with, who, by talking with them and engaging with them and sharing each other's content, you help build each other's brands, right? So what I would do, and what I did do, is I started off by just searching for keywords in my niche, like direct response, direct marketing, copywriting, SEO, different things like that were all related to copy and people with online businesses. And I would find people who were tweeting about that stuff. If I liked their tweet, I would like it. If I thought it was really good, I might retweet it. If they had a following themselves, I might retweet it, but not just retweet it. As I was mentioning earlier, adding some copy at the top of the retweet, that adds even more value. At this point, I wouldn't necessarily suggest trying to be a troll. Trolling can have its merits in terms of polarizing people and, getting a thread or a tweet to get a lot of traction just because of its controversy surrounding it. But at this point, it's not necessarily the one caveat to that is that, like, when you're just starting out, it can get you attention, right? And they say all publicity is good publicity. And to an extent, that's true. But one of the rules of thumb when it came to trolling, for example, if you see someone who's a big influencer in your space and they tweet something you vehemently disagree with, you think it is just absolutely positively wrong. For example, as a copywriter, if I saw other marketers tweeting things or talking about strategies that I thought were dishonest or misleading, then I would retweet it and then slam them in the retweet, talking about how this is unethical marketing and how it's lazy copywriting, and that if you're actually a good marketer, you don't need to do those things, right? Now, if you don't have a following and you're looking at people with big followings, right, that can be an easy way to piggyback on their credibility and their established following, and generate some buzz for yourself. And if people agree with you, maybe then a lot of times they'll follow you back. They'll go to your profile. And when you have your profile set up with the call to actions and the credibility in your USB, then they're like, oh, I should follow this person too, or I should get on their list. Okay. So that's really square one, starting by searching, and there's actually a lot of tools that'll help you do this, and some that'll even make it automated for you, which is a little bit gray hat. And I don't recommend doing it extensively or regularly, because it'll get you knocked off Twitter if you're using automated software that like auto likes, for example, or auto retweets or auto follows. So there's software like if you can put in direct marketer or direct response or internet marketer in the software, and it'll go and search for any profile that has those keywords in their profile, and then it'll automatically follow them. And the idea is that by following these people, then it's like an impression. You get an impression. They see you follow them. They become curious. Oh, who is Matt RIZVI? They click on Matt RIZVI. They see my profile. They see what I'm about, what I believe, and hopefully they follow me back, or they like my stuff, they retweet it, whatnot. So that helps build traction. It helps build your network. But ideally, you're not doing it in an automated, spammy kind of way. It's more authentic, where you're searching for folks you truly vibe with and who you want to be following their content, right? So that's what I started doing it, and I would highly recommend doing when you have a following of 0, right? You search for folks who are tweeting about your topic, who are experts in it. You follow them, you engage them, and you add value, or occasionally troll if you feel like that their principles go against yours, and you use that as an opportunity to draw a line in the sand in your marketplace and say, these are the principles I'm for, and these are the things I'm against. And honestly, doing that kind of making a stand on social media about your beliefs is a great way to get people fired up and charged, either increasing the engagement and just the feelings that they have for you as a person, right? It also goes a lot back to the video I made on, I guess it was Friday, with the 4 quadrants, right? So just like your big idea should be unique and believable, you want the same thing to happen with your tweets, right? You want to write tweets that lots of people will agree with, but you're articulating the idea in a way that people haven't seen before. Maybe you're telling stories about your beliefs. For example, as a copywriter, I might write about the big ideas, right? Or the importance of writing daily. So as a copywriter, I have certain principles that I believe in, and then I would use these tweets to express those ideas and teach the principles of what makes a great copywriter and what it takes and what bad clients look like and when you should fire a client, and teaching lessons through these tweets, but explaining it in a way that's unique to me, and people are like, oh, I've never heard that before. That's an interesting take, or that's slightly controversial, like, for example, or counterintuitive. So if you're able to say things like why it's better to have a small list, but a list that's has huge engagement, right? And kind of you shaming the idea of just only caring about subscriber count, when in really it's about quality over quantity. And again, you're kind of drawing the line in the sand of where your beliefs fall versus other people in your space. Another example, and like, I'm definitely not a vegan, but if you're in the health space and you're trying to teach people about the importance of eating a plant-based diet, okay, then your tweets are going to be very controversial, and you want to draw that line in the sand about why plants are great, and kind of shaming the people who are eating meat. And again, that's not my beliefs, but if you want to galvanize the folks on social media and basically call out and magnetize the folks who are really aligned with you ideologically, then that's a great way to do it. All right. I also want to just mention, if y'all watching at home have any questions about topics that I bring up here, drop them in the chat. Leave me a comment. With the Ecamm Live here, I should be able to see them pretty easily, and I want to kind of experiment with if I can actually put them on the screen or not, just to help me test it out real quick. And if you're watching, just put your name in the chat and let me know where you're watching from. Love to interact with y'all, and just like you want to interact on social media with your regular posts, you should be doing the same thing, just like Rich does, right? So let me know where y'all from. And if you have any questions, I'd love to bring them up and address them as we're going through this. And I can't figure this out here. All right, we'll see how tech savvy I'm able to get today. But jumping back to social media, real quick. Like I was saying, I think there's two really big objectives. Hey Gary P from Cleveland, Ohio. Let's see. Okay, if I can. Oh, look at that! I did it. Very cool. Appreciate it, Gary. All right, now that's off the screen. Cool. What's up, Andrew? How are you doing, man? Yeah, it works. It's alive. I think that Andrew, the patent profiler, right? How you doing, man? Good to see you. Appreciate it, Andrew. Andrew just had great content. I've been working on it, and I got my Everything is Teachable shirt on, so I'm feeling the vibes today. All right, so Twitter. And again, I'm going to show you how this applies to Facebook in a second. When you first start tweeting a lot, and as you start building that following, what I recommend first is to focus on building connections with other influencers in your market. And I've alluded to this a little bit earlier, but it's really basically the ultimate goal is to climb the ladder of influencers in your space. So when you're just starting off as on social media, you're not going to have any followers. And if you don't have any followers or you don't have any clout, you don't have any social proof to show that you got good ideas and you're legit and you know what you're talking about, then people are less likely to retweet your stuff. They're less likely to follow you. So social proof is so critical on social media. And so what you got to do is, like I was teasing, you got to engage the influencers in your space, provide value on their tweets or troll them, and get that to gain virality. Okay, either they'll retweet your retweet, they'll like your post, they'll follow you back, things like that. But there's a caveat here, because what you don't want to do is immediately just go out and follow or like or retweet all the posts from the biggest influencers in your space. Like if you are trying to become an internet marketing guru and you just go out and you retweet Gary V all the time, it's not going to get you anywhere. All right. Gary V has a massive, massive audience. And sure, like the upside, if he retweets you once, you could get a huge, influx of followers. But the likelihood of that happening, the likelihood of you and Gary V having a conversation on social media or back and forth, and I'm just picking on Gary V. He's probably like a really nice guy. I don't know. He probably, maybe he does talk to his fans a lot. But what I would recommend, instead of trying to go for the people with several million followers, you look at the first rung up from you, right? So if you have 0, I start with, okay, who has a couple thousand followers, right? You want to look at those people who are kind of starting out. There's people at 0, there's people at a couple hundred followers, people at a couple thousand, 10,000, 100,000, million, right? So you want to look at that kind of in increments of 10x, right? Or that order of magnitude. So if you're at 0, look at the folks in your space who are tweeting a lot, who are up-and-comers, right? Who have several hundred followers who tweet all the time. They're active. You agree with what they say. You think they have a lot to contribute, and you think that y'all would jive on your ideas. I would start retweeting and engaging and liking their stuff first, okay? And then they retweet you. You have these open dialogues. You become basically friends by, long distance pen pals, right? And this is what really starts to build your network on social media, which is going to help you build your following. So you shouldn't be going out to find the followers. You should be going out to find the other influencers who you can engage with, who, when they retweet and like your stuff, they're going to give you their own credibility to build your list, okay? So that should be the number one priority. That is like the one thing, like every time I got a big influx of followers, like the tweet has to be good, it has to be unique, it has to be original, and people have to agree with it. But you have to get other influencers in your space to like it as well and retweet it, and that's going to get it the virality, okay? Like the tweet that I think I wrote I got the most traction was like retweeted by Naval. I don't know if y'all know Naval, he's got a couple million. But I mean, that got a huge influx. But at the same time, that wasn't even like the best day I had in terms of opt-ins to my list, because Naval isn't really like an internet marketing guru. He's just kind of like a thought leader on philosophy and tech and investing and things like that. So I got like a big wave of followers. I got a ton of views on my profile, and the tweet itself got a lot of traction. But in terms of what that meant for outcomes in my own business, it didn't really convert to followers or opt-ins. So it's also critical to make sure that when you're looking for other influencers in your space who you want to build that network with, that they're very tightly associated with your business. So basically the same type of people who you'd want to work with to run affiliate offers to your list. And this will likely happen when you're tweeting a lot and you're building this network, is that suddenly they'll reach out to you, be like, hey, I got this offer. Would you send it to your list, or would you tweet about it? And this is how, JVs end up happening pretty organically, which is what happened to me when I was on Twitter. We built up this big group of internet marketers who were all, young guys in their 20s who were, working from home, making money on the internet with their laptop, either as freelancers or, other types of service providers, or they had their own online business. And we would just retweet each other's stuff. We would chat online. We had our own Twitter message group, where we'd let each other know when we had a really fire tweet that they should retweet, or when we wanted to do JV deals, like we had a launch coming up. So, hey man, would you mind promoting this offer? So building that network was absolutely critical. It's basically like an affiliate network for traffic. Okay, that's essentially what you're doing at first. You want to start at, you're starting at the bottom rung of the ladder. You want to reach out to folks who you find and jive with. You want to provide value on top of what they're tweeting, so that you create that authentic connection where you're like, man, I really like this person. And honestly, I became good friends with a lot of these people. I'd never met a lot of them in real life, but it felt like, we had a legitimate friendship, because we would talk, we would read each other's content, we were in sync on a lot of ideas. And a bunch of these guys I ended up meeting because, as I was talking about in my email, I think it was yesterday, that my buddy Nate Schmidt, he's an e-com guru who's actually like way more successful at the Twitter game than me. Highly recommend checking out his Twitter because he does it very well. But he had an in-person conference in Austin for his e-commerce students, and I went out there and I gave copy critiques for them as a speaker at the event. And none of that would have happened if just engaging people online, meeting them, sharing ideas, and becoming friendly with the the niche, whatever niche you're in, you want to find those influencers who you want to kind of infiltrate that in circle and become one of them. But again, you do it by providing value first, by liking their tweets, retweeting their tweets, adding value to their tweets when you retweet them. And that's going to give you that traction. Once they see like, oh, this guy or gal, they like my stuff, they're helping me. Because it's a two-way street, right? By you liking and retweeting and adding value to their tweets, you're giving them social proof. So, it's this reciprocal relationship where you're giving them social proof as the person with a smaller number of followers, and then they reciprocate that by, oh, it's like this person's been following me for a long time. They add a lot of commentary to the tweets. We're clearly on the same page. We talk about a lot of similar stuff. And then, they'll start retweeting your stuff, okay? And again, it's going to be very similar on the Facebook side too, okay? All right, now let me show you some examples of exactly what I'm talking about. So there's some more context here. Now, hopefully, this is going to work okay to do a screen share. Screen share. All right, and then, okay. Hopefully, you should be seeing my Twitter feed right now, and I have my iPad set up so I can see what this looks like on another screen, but there's a slight delay, and so I think it is working. Perfect. Okay, so you can see at the very top here we have my header, ditch the 9-to-5, got a quote from me, and then a call to action, discover how at mattrizvi.com. Originally, I only had mattrizvi.com. My handle's always been Daily Copywriter. You can go follow me there if you like, but I haven't actually tweeted on here ever since I left that biz to join Strategic Profits. So this is much more of an artifact right now. So it's not updated, and I hadn't been tweeting regularly up until that point. So this is more of a demonstration. But still, even with the infrastructure I created here and my blog, I still regularly get a handful of opt-ins every single day, even though I don't tweet anymore. And I only have 4,300 followers. I think that was up to 46. But again, that's not a megaton. Most of the friends I was tweeting with have tens of thousands of followers. So they're doing it much better than me. But this is just an example of the potential that you can do and get started quickly. And what I would say is that even though I only had 4,300 followers, that with that amount, I was still able to get like 1,200 email opt-ins, over the course of just a couple months. So, the engage, even though it's a low follower count, the engagement was very high at the time, and a lot of people were opting into the email list. So, as you can see here, this is what it looks like on desktop. It's slightly different on mobile, but we got our banner at the top, which again is important real estate that you should be using. You can see here what I was doing. We can click and zoom in this. So we got pictures. This is what I was trying to sell, right? I was trying to sell the idea of being a freelancer, working remotely, making money writing from your laptop. Okay. So you can see my pictures here. I'm out in Mojave over here. I'm at Big Sur, and then here's me at my little workstation in San Francisco, which is all social proof that shows that, hey, I am living the life that I talk about in my tweets. I'm living, which was a very comfortable life, getting to travel a lot. Go to the Mojave and camp, or I'd go to this spot in Big Sur. Was my favorite spot in the whole world. I miss it so much. But being able to work at those locations and just pack up during the middle of the week and go, right? So the header really demonstrated, and you want to do the same thing kind of with the picture here. I'm not doing it. Fantastic example, but the idea is that you want your header image, and it's the same thing on a Facebook profile, right? You get the banner at the top, and on the Facebook banner, the cool thing about the Facebook banner at least is that when you click on that, since it's an image, you can actually comment on it. and in the comments or in the description of the photo, you can have links, right? So you see people off like savvy marketers saying with the call to action in here, and it's like got an arrow pointing, or it says like click here, and then you click the image, and then there's a more information, more copy and descriptions in the description of the photo itself. So that's important real estate. Don't underutilize it. All right. Same thing with the description here. So off-grid adventure with an online income or Gora-trained copywriter, discover how I earn 5-figure fees plus royalties from writing. So really here, again, I'm building credibility, talking about what I do, like who I am, credibility, a Gora-trained copywriter, but also the USP, discover how I earn 5-figure fees plus royalties from writing, right? So that was the ultimate goal for a lot of people who I was coaching and selling copywriting education to. They want to earn $10, $20, $30,000 checks for writing a sales letter, plus get 5 and 6 figure royalties from that copy. So that's the ultimate USP here for me and the people I wanted to attract. Okay. Then you got your still link in here. I probably didn't do a good job because I got like Matt RIZVI, and then Daily Copywriter. But Matt RIZVI was my page where that's kind of like my personal page where it's explains who I am. I think I still have it up, right? So if you go here, howdy, I'm Matt RIZVI. Talk about what makes me different as a copywriter. Had links to getting my programs as well as hiring students. Got all that social proof from testimonials, podcast appearances. I used to have more up here. I don't know what happened. And then opportunity there. But then at the very top, if you go to the blog, then that takes you to Daily Copywriter. So Daily Copywriter is where I would publish all of my daily emails that you could access. My podcast, you can see I had Joe Schriefer on the podcast. This is my final one. But I would take a lot of this content and then also just republish it on, and of course, you got to have your call to action with a lead magnet at the top. So they were very much like, even though there are two different websites, they were in sync. And I was trying to build out the Daily Copywriter brand that was bigger than my personal brand and not just specific to Matt RIZVI. So maybe I was trying to do too much with it there, but it was okay. So that's those two parts. Now we have the pinned tweet at the top. All right. And so this was just a tweet that, got a okay amount of traction, not a ton, but it was just one of my favorite tweets. And honestly, I could have had a better one here, and I have rotated them out many, many times. Usually, what I recommend having at the pinned tweet at the top is a tweet that teases your lead magnet. So ideally, obviously I'm violating, this recommendation here, but having a pinned tweet that talks about, for example, I had a video that I recorded that gave 6 tips on exactly how to double your writing speed. And so it was saying that, hey, click here and I'll, to get this free video where I teach you how to double your writing speed. And that obviously generated a lot of opt-ins. I'm trying to remember why I switched them out. But the point is, that's kind of like the ideal format here, right? So you want to have an image at the top that helps convey your USP as well as a call to action to opt into your list. You want to have the same thing in your description where you have details about yourself, the social proof, who you are, why they should listen to you, your USP, and again, call to action. And then hit them up again in the pinned tweet at the top where you're talking about you're just giving away value is what I recommend. Some people, they try to sell products in here. I find that for me, my ultimate goal of the Twitter page is to get people onto my email list. Okay. So I know a lot of folks who use social media and they sell directly from social media, and that's a legit strategy. I know plenty of folks who've done that very well. But for me, I wanted every single call to action. I wanted the ultimate goal of every piece of content I did on this page to drive people to my email list. Okay. And so as I was alluding to earlier, with Twitter, you can have various lengths of content. There's the 280 limit count, but what I like about it too is that you can do threads, and so it's the same thing in Facebook. Facebook, when you make a post on Facebook, you have the copy at the top, and then it says read more, and then you can say read more, and it can be essentially as long as you want it to be. You can have really, really long posts on Facebook, and the same is true on Twitter if you make it into a thread. So I'll show you what I did here to do that. So just like an email or a sales letter, posts on Facebook and Twitter, and I saw Stefan saying that he wants to create a IG page, and I think that you can do for the most part the same things too. Again, as I was saying earlier, I'm still a rookie on IG. I'm trying to work on that, but you can see here basically we have the headline, right? 4 ethical ways to exploit emotions for profit. It's a little controversial and it sounds counterintuitive, and so it's curiosity provoking. How can you have an ethical way to exploit emotions? Even had someone comment that saying you can't do that ethically. So obviously that triggered people a little bit, and that's what you want. Want to be a master manipulator? Then learn to take advantage of these 4 human weaknesses. Warning: this advice works for good or evil, but the choice is yours. I'm just the information arms dealer. And then we go into the thread. So when you're creating a thread like this, it's really just connecting lots of tweets to tell a full story. And what I would do, the cool thing about this, there's several cool things. This gives you a chance to just republish a lot of content you're doing. So if you are writing a daily email, then you can just take that email, put essentially what becomes the lead at the top, and then break it up into segments in each tweet. And I would actually be very thoughtful about this, right? Like you want each tweet to end on a natural break that leads people to continue reading on to the next tweet. So formatting is actually pretty important here. You'll notice like this tweet is much shorter than these other tweets, but that was intentional, right? Like you want to end on a point that makes you want to keep reading. Like the ultimate goal is to get people to keep reading from one tweet to the next tweet. And you'll see like these exploits. I always start one of the tweets with the exploit at the top. I wouldn't start that mid-tweet. Again, that's not insanely important, the formatting. But the idea is just like with both Facebook and Twitter, you want to have a headline and a lead, right? Because as they talk about just with web pages and with newspapers of old, right? You have a fold, and the fold is where the break is between what the copy you can see versus the copy that you have to either scroll down to see or you have to click to see more, right? So all the copy above the fold here, actually including the thread part, all that copy is above the fold, and that needs to be your strongest copy, right? That needs to be the copy that really encourages people to keep reading. It should pique their curiosity. It should we talk about open loops a lot in the emails. You want to create an open loop that teases the value that people are about to get by continuing to read further throughout the thread, okay? So you open that loop, and then they click more to learn more. And again, it's the same thing on Facebook. They read the content, they get all that value. Mine tended to be very value driven, and a lot of the very successful threads on Facebook are extremely valuable. I've seen threads that it's almost like it should be paid content. There's so much value in it, and those have the opportunity to go viral just because of how impactful they can be to the readers. And then at the end, I transition from this nicely into a call to action, right? So I have this break here. It's like, so there you have it, folks. 4 ways you can ethically hijack emotions in your favor and make a kit and caboodle in the process. Want more sales secrets like these? Then sign up for my free business newsletter delivered 7 days a week at mattrizzvi.com. My subscribers include CEOs, 7-figure online entrepreneurs, and A-list copywriters. You can join them here. Then, of course, you got to have the emojis, and then a link to the site. And I'm not sure why this arrow is coming up as my preview. It didn't used to do that, but setting up this format here for threads. And again, the threads don't have to be super long. A lot of times tweets might just have a small tease and then link directly to the your site for your opt-in page in the first tweet, right? So you don't necessarily have to have it a multi-step process to drive people to your opt-in page. But if you have that, if you're able to grab people's attention at the top of the post with your headline and your lead, provide tons of value in the body copy, and then what I often would do as well was, this is not a good example of it. Other threads I would say at the end I would have an editor's note that said, this thread was originally sent out in Matt's daily email. If you want to, get this content before anyone else or before it's, posted on Twitter, then click here to sign up. All right. Or, if you have a specific product or lead magnet that really ties in to this idea that you're writing about in the body copy, then you might tease that lead magnet for people to sign up for and then click to get it, right? So that's the general format, right? So a lot of these would be threads, like I said, but they don't have to be threads. But you do want a good diversity of your content. Obviously, threads are going to take more time to write and publish than other short form content, but threads can be extremely powerful because if you have a value-packed thread, then those will often get a huge amount of shares, and you are able to easily put a call to action at the very end, and people don't realize it until they get to the end, right? So it's like you hook their attention at first, they digest all the content, and then they see, oh, there's an ask here. He wants me to opt into his email list. And they don't, they're not going to hold that against you at that point because you've given away so much good stuff, right? Versus if you're just tweeting all the time, sign up for my email list here, I'll give you this, this, and this. It's much less likely to be effective because people aren't going to retweet that, right? If you're just tweeting asks saying, hey, come sign up here, that's not going to go viral, right? So in order for people to want to share your content, then it has to be stuff that grabs attention. It has to be stuff that's counterintuitive. It has to be unique ideas that folks disagree with or are slightly controversial. Has got to provide value. And then, once you've delivered that, it becomes very, very easy for people to say yes, to click on your link, to go opt into your page, or just go to your profile because they really liked your tweet and they want to learn more about you, and they start by following you. And then once they, at that point, your social media becomes an extension of your list, right? So your list really isn't only the people who you have their emails. Your list is your followers too. And by tweeting or by posting on Facebook, you can accomplish a lot of the same things that you would by selling on email, right? But like I said, for me, the ultimate purpose of everything on Twitter was to get people to go to my site and opt in, because that's where I would do the selling. I would do the selling over email, and on Twitter, I wanted to collect emails. All right, let me stop sharing this. Okay, back to the better one. All right, I got some questions here. All right, Andrew says, I agree, always better to start small. Let me try adding these back to the broadcast here. How do I do this? Oh, there we go. Thanks, Andrew. Mateus, good afternoon from Cleveland. Good to see you, man. All right, Stefan. I'm already doing an IG page. I help students and entrepreneurs become more productive and save massive amounts of time. Great idea to build an affiliate group of like-minded people that will continuously grow their own pages, but then can also co-promote and do JVs, similar network merging activities. Absolutely. That is really going to be, for me, it was the number one driver in terms of getting new followers And also that deferred credibility, the fact that other influencers are liking your stuff is going to give you the credibility and show folks that, they should follow you because these other people who have big followings are following you too. That is critical. All right, got a question here. I'm not sure who this is from. Would you say that Twitter is good ROI on the time you spend into it? I never used it. I'm thinking that solely focusing on IG, YouTube, and TikTok since organic is massive. I have 10K there, 2K on YouTube, and 2.2K on IG is better ROI. Twitter doesn't sound like my cup of tea. Also, I guess organic is dead there. You depend in consistently communicating with people like 20 times per day, right? Yeah, so I would definitely add the caveat that when you're starting off on Twitter, and I'm gonna assume that it's like this for other channels too. Like it's gonna be a grind when you're starting off. You're not gonna see the high ROI at first, right? It is a higher ROI because you're not having to spend dollars, but you are spending time, and so that's one of the reasons I ended up spending less time on Twitter was because I didn't actually have the funnels built out or the offers really dialed in to monetize my time effectively. And my caveat to here, I would say that if you're doing this, I highly, highly, highly recommend having a high ticket back end offer, because that is going to give you so much more wiggle room and make that a much more effective use of your time. Okay, so if you have an offer, or if you're a service provider and you're using this to look for clients, for example, or you do high-end coaching, then absolutely this can be a great use of your time. Okay, but if you only have a front-end product, or if you're trying to sell like a $9 ebook and you're just getting started and you don't have a massive following already, then it's gonna feel like a grind. I've seen I have lots of friends who've made courses on Twitter on how to build a following using Twitter, and a lot of them recommend tweeting 20 to 50 times a day, right? And that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, right? Even for someone like me who's a copywriter who writes for a living, trust me, tweeting that much can feel brutal. Even 10 times a day was like, whew. Especially if you're trying to come up with ideas that are truly unique. So what I would recommend to that point as well, though, is that add automation. Okay, so often, obviously you want to schedule your tweets ahead of time using something like Buffer to queue up tweets, so you're not just constantly tweeting, right? You can spend an hour just writing tweets, queue them all up, and then they're slowly dripped out through the day. In terms of Twitter though versus IG or YouTube, TikTok, I'm not sure exactly how the TikTok algorithm works. I guess China keeps that a black box. I don't know. But what I would say is that the cool thing about Twitter is that Twitter doesn't censor people with their algorithm, right? Like if someone is following you and they're looking at their feed and you post, they're going to see it. Okay? There's no black box, there's no secret algorithm like Facebook that is going to filter the content, right? Twitter is very much more transparent on that process. So if you're following a ton of people and you're looking at your feed, you're going to see those tweets in chronological order as they are tweeted. And that's why it's also very important to be tweeting throughout the day. Right? Because if someone doesn't see your tweet, it's not like they're going to come. Well, I mean, this is not true. They do have highlights. So if one tweet gets like a ton of engagement or something like that, then you might come back later and see the highlights in your feed. But generally speaking, who the fuck is calling me? I had someone 800 number calling me. I'm like, come on, people, don't you know I'm live streaming? All right. So like I was saying, the thing that I really like about Twitter is that it's very transparent in how they put things in the feed, right? And that's what I like. I like knowing that if people follow me, they're gonna see my content when I post it. Okay, and that way I can spread it out throughout the day. There's apps that can show you when people are most engaged, and there's AI available now that will learn based on your tweets what times of day your followers are most likely to get engagement. And so you can use that information to help you decide when it's best to tweet and the best times to tweet. Versus Facebook, you just don't know. And I would say the same thing with IG, obviously. YouTube, it's a little bit different because YouTube is so driven by search. I don't know the organic nature of YouTube as well. I know a lot of people think it's all about it's much more like SEO, where kind of like SEO blog posts, but like SEO for videos, where you want to pick something that's very topical and do that. But even if you're ranking, like for example, Rich got a video to rank like 6th recently on like digital marketing, right? But even getting to rank 5th or 6th, it's not like he got thousands of views. So I'm not as well versed on what it takes to become a big YouTube sensation. What I do know though is that the people who do YouTube really well and who are the big influencers on that space, they still produce a video every single day, dude. So if you're thinking that other platforms you're not gonna have to grind as hard and you're not gonna have to produce as much content, I highly doubt it. Okay, Instagram is another thing that's a little weird. I guess with like what you don't want to do on Instagram. Obviously, you're not gonna post 20 times on your Instagram feed, right? You're just gonna blow up your feed that way. And I'm sure there's not enough like pretty pictures that would make your feed look good. You can do that with stories though. So stories are interesting. I find the stories aspect very interesting. And as a copywriter, being able to tell a story with IG is very cool. Having different pictures and creating, you can basically do the same thing you do with text, in terms of creating an open loop and having a headline in the beginning and telling a story with these little fragments and segments in that. And having the swipe up feature for the call to action. So I definitely think IG is much more similar to Twitter than Twitter's to YouTube. All right. So like YouTube, I'm a little less certain about like how you legitimately gain traction, because like the strategies I'm talking about here, I'm not sure really apply to YouTube. For example, you can't just go like share. If you share someone else's YouTube video, it's not like they're going to see you share them and then subscribe to your channel and things like that. And from what I understand, like having lots of subscribers, most people don't watch videos just because they're subscribed to them. They watch the videos because, like the SEO aspect we were talking about earlier, because they're ranking high for certain search terms and they have, they get their own virality in that regard. But Instagram, I do think is a lot more, would apply a lot of these tips we've been talking about, where on IG, you can go out and follow these other influencers who are in your space. You can comment on their photos, even if they're not following you back. And you can share and add their stuff to your story and add value in it that way, right? So you can do a lot of the same strategies that we're talking about here, but just apply that to IG. And I would assume that would be very effective, okay? Again, I don't have a huge IG following, and I'm just kind of dipping my toes into it more for personally than anything else. But I would suspect that the things we're talking about here that work in terms of the Facebook posts as well as the Twitter posts work for IG. I wouldn't say though that Twitter is not, like, you're not going to have a high ROI on Twitter. I know people who have a fantastic ROI on Twitter. Obviously, though, that ROI is going to increase over time as your following grows and you get more leverage in every single post you have. It's also going to increase, like I said, if you have a high ticket offer and you have a funnel built out, or you have lots of products, or you have some type of monetization strategy for these folks once they get onto your email list, or even directly from the platform itself. Okay. And then to the point as well of like having to tweet 10, 20, 50 times a day. So automation, not just in terms of scheduling your tweets and posts in advance, the same applies to Facebook, but also reposting tweets that you've already written before. So the beauty of this is that since a tweet is not likely to reach all of your followers, and the same thing goes with Facebook too. When you post, it's only going to reach a fraction of the people who follow you. It's really effective that if you have a really fire tweet and it is going bananas and people are loving it and the idea just really resonates with your group, then save it for later, and a month or 2 months or 3 months from now, tweet it again. And so once you've built up an archive of tweets, and I've saved all of my tweets. I have them, like I had an automation set up where all my tweets got archived into my Evernote. But that's gonna like cut your tweet load in half. Once you've started tweeting a lot, and then you have this archive of really successful ones that you can automate into the process. So, maybe every 2 weeks you have this one tweet go out, or you reshare this thread that was really successful, right? You're constantly, if you're doing this often, you're going to be adding new followers to your list often who haven't seen all your old tweets, and not everyone's going to see every single tweet or thread that you put out. So you might as well get as much mileage out of each piece of content as you can by, if it's really working well, or if you have like a thread that got you a ton of opt-ins, save that thread and then retweet it on a regular basis. So you don't even have to repost the whole thread. If you wrote that thread last month, just retweet it again, and then it makes it fresh all over. Okay, and that will save you a ton of time and make the ROI on your time a lot more favorable. But don't get it twisted. Grinding on Twitter is a high time intensive activity. All right, especially early on when you haven't built up an archive of content and you are spending more. But at that point, really, I would, when you don't have any followers and things like that, like I was saying earlier, I would focus my time more on engaging other influencers than I would on tweeting 50 times a day. Tweeting 50 times a day, if you have 0 followers, isn't going to get you the leverage as much as retweeting other folks, adding value to their content, trying to engage them and build connections with people in that sphere of influence. All right. So, all right. Not sure what you're meaning by organic is dead there. I mean, organic in terms of search, like, yeah, probably. Like, people don't actively search for, if you have like for me, I have a dead account that I haven't tweeted on in almost a year. So yeah, I'm not going to generate tons of traffic organically for that. But in terms of organic, where if you're posting and it goes viral, it gets shared by a lot of folks, then absolutely organic is not dead. And as I was alluding to in the email, like in the days when I was hustling, for me, I never wrote like 20 tweets a day. For me, like max, it was like 10. And that would be 10 original tweets, and then I would weave in some automated ones that were hits from the past. But on a really good day, right, I might get 50 to 100 opt-ins. And so if I'm spending like an hour writing all those tweets, or even 2 hours, if I spent 2 hours writing 10 tweets and I got that 100 opt-ins or 50 opt-ins, then, most people, when they're buying leads, they pay $5 on the low end, right? And I would actually say that the people who opt into your list from your Twitter, I found, are way more qualified of buyers than people who, if you are buying traffic to a lead magnet, okay, because I've done both. I can promise you, you can spend $5 on getting people to opt in from like a Facebook ad to claim your lead magnet, or you could, or with Twitter, right? Like let's assign these leads $5. I will tell you that the ROI on the Twitter lead is way higher. Almost all my, like I was trying multiple, I got to the point when I was growing my business where I was attempting multiple types of traffic generation. And I was buying ads on Facebook and things like that to claim lead magnets. But basically everyone who ended up buying my copywriting course and who ended up signing up for my coaching program, which were paying me like $100 a month to just come to my office hours once a week. So I was, generating thousands of bucks a month from these folks, and all of them, I don't know a single person who signed up for my coaching program who came from paid traffic. Okay. And I did I did email drops too and things like that. The email drops were garbage leads. And again, that was sending out an email to folks and teasing a free report or something like that and getting them to sign up, versus kind of doing something very similar on Twitter where you have the pin tweet at the top teasing your premium and promising value. And really, like on my Twitter, often it wouldn't even be talking about the lead magnet. And by not talking about a lead magnet and by only talking about the ideas that you're writing every day in your daily emails, you're going to get way more qualified people who actually just want to hear your ideas, and they want to start reading your stuff because they like you as a person, not just because they're a freebie seeker who wants, to learn how to double their writing speed without doing any work, which was obviously my lead magnet. So that's a huge caveat too. Like, yes, it's a lot of work, but as I was mentioning, the engagement that you're going to get from these people is going to be way higher than you'll get from paid traffic, and the value of each lead is going to be way higher than paid traffic. So, if, like I said, when I was hustling, getting 50 to 100 leads a day, like $5 is really conservative on the value. So let's like double that and say like $10. So that's still, basically the value of these leads at least is $500 to $1,000 a day, which ain't nothing to sneeze at, right? And if you're only spending an hour or two writing these tweets, then that's a pretty solid ROI on your time. Okay? All right. Let's see here. What else we got? Rahat from Bangladesh. How's it going, man? Appreciate you watching. Stefan. How do I add this to the broadcast? Stefan, I'm trying to... There we go. Okay, cool. Can I? Perfect. All right. Let's see here, because I don't want to block my face a little bit. That's okay. At which point would you say is the right time to introduce some automation, like a simple landing page, screening them in Calendly, and getting them on the call through paid ads? I have about 30 super great results with students, entrepreneurs on productivity coaching. I have about 15 video testimonials and a bunch of text chat testimonials. My offer and messaging is really well defined at this moment, constantly working on that. Would you say that I'm ready to start a bit of paid Facebook ads and IG ads, or do you still recommend I keep growing my IG, outreaching to people manually, and inviting them on the calls? Okay. I would say it depends on your price point. If your back-end offer is high ticket, like I would say at least $3K, ideally $5K or something like that, then it might be worth it. The problem with paid media is like I was just alluding to from the other question, which is that it really depends on your ads too. Like if your ads are promising someone just a free content, then that's not necessarily going to be a valuable lead. So the mechanism that you're advertising with through the paid media is incredibly important. So if they're signing up for a webinar, so for example, one of the strategies we talk a lot about and I've seen is very effective is, advertising for a webinar. And when people opt into the webinar, then you immediately give them an offer. Maybe it's like a free book or something like that. Or excuse me, not a free book, a free plus shipping book offer or something like that, or a special report that's $20-$30. But having some type of paid offer right when they opt into the webinar, but before they actually watch the webinar. And then once you get that running, you can use Facebook targeting or IG, and you want to set the conversion pixel to be the people who buy that first offer. So basically, you want to specifically target people who are like the folks who bought that immediate offer after they opted in for the webinar. And then they get on the webinar, and then you have your high ticket offer. And ideally, that high ticket offer is high enough where you should even be profitable on your ad spend. Okay, so if you have like a $2,000 or $3,000 offer on the webinar, and then you have a $20 to $50 offer on the what we call an OTO, a one-time offer once they opt into the webinar itself, you want to target lookalike audiences of folks who convert on that one-time offer, and that's going to help you find people who are super qualified for the $2,000 to $3,000 offer, and your offer is much more likely to be profitable there. So I don't want to say that. I think the point when you get to paid traffic, the threshold can be very low. Like I don't want to say there's a right and wrong time, because honestly, the beauty of Facebook nowadays is that you can just take $20 and put a stop loss on some ad spend and have a little fun, right? It's like going to Vegas and just playing with fuck you money, right? So it's if you're taking money and you're not trying to bet the farm on the paid traffic, then absolutely start early and often and constantly experiment and see how your funnel is converting, see how quickly you can monetize those leads and the quality of those leads. But I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket before I have an offer that's been validated. It'd be a lot safer to attempt to test offers with affiliate traffic, right? If you build up that influencer list of people who are like-minded, like we've been talking about, and reach out to them and you say, hey, I got this brand new offer. It's working well to my internal list. Let's test it to your list, and I'll give you a huge percentage of the revenue. Then that's a better way to test. One concept I saw from Justin Goff that I thought was really smart, which kind of known intuitively, but never saw it actually articulated this way before, in terms of the hierarchy of offers. And when it comes to putting your offer in front of prospects, the bottom of the hierarchy is the internal list. Like if you have an internal list and you're sending a offer to them, it's going to be very easy to convert because they're hot, right? They know you, they know your product, they know the problem. Those are going to convert the best. Okay. Now the next ladder up in that hierarchy is going to be affiliates traffic, right? So if you have a network and you reach out to affiliates and those affiliates endorse you and they have lists of similar people who are also on your list, then that's going to convert not as good as your internal traffic, but it's going to be, it won't be crazy difficult, right? It's still going to be convert better than the next rung up. And that top of the pyramid is the cold traffic, right? So if you're trying to take an offer and get it convert to cold traffic, that is the holy grail. That is the most challenging, right? And so if you're just starting off, or even if you have an offer and you're starting to get some sales, it's going to be challenging to go straight to cold traffic and get a positive return on your ad spend. Okay. You really need Agora, they're willing to go negative on ad spend just because they have such a long, they have so many back-end products that they can sell, and their opportunity to monetize a lead can go for a really long time, right? So unless you have a roster of back-end offers to sell folks and have really dialed in your email sequences and your follow-up campaigns and things like that, then the less risky you should be when it comes to buying media and running cold traffic. Okay, so I wouldn't say that. I think someone who's really good at this on a large scale. If you look at Taylor Welsh and Chris Evans from Traffic and Funnels, like all the time, Chris is just posting organically from his Facebook page. Sure, they buy a ton of media, but it always, for the most part, I think it often starts by people joining their Facebook group, and then they see one of his posts, and then they like it, and then he ends up retargeting those folks who are either in the group or who have engaged with his post with the ads, right? So I don't know all their strategies and stuff, but I do know that I got a lot more of their ads after I started engaging with the content versus when I hadn't done anything to raise my hand and say that, I know who you are, I'm interested in what you're doing. But he does it all the time where he is regularly, it's what they call, for them, they refer to it as a two-step, because they make what they'll do is Taylor will write a post on Facebook. Usually it's very high value. It's entertaining. It gets a lot of people to engage. And in the post itself, he'll promise to give folks a special report or special training that he normally sells for X number of dollars. But if you comment below with a certain word or phrase, then someone on his team will reach out to you and give you that content for free. But the caveat to that is when they reach out to you, they actually use that as part of their funnel to upsell folks to high-end coaching, right? So it's that two-step where they start with this free content and then they immediately ascend you up the ladder very quickly to high-end coaching if you're qualified for that kind of thing. But they use most of their low-end content just as the bait to get you to engage with them on Messenger, right? And once they're on Messenger, like, you're much more likely to chat with a salesperson or things like that. It's a very smart strategy, and we're definitely looking at that as ways to build out our own funnel. But what I would say is that I don't think and they have a massive business, right? So they do. I don't want to throw out numbers, but I'm pretty sure they're close to. Well, I think in a post recently, he said within the next. He said he's going to have $100 million net worth in the next 18 months, is what he said. But I know they're pretty close to like a 9-figure business already in terms of annual revenue. And so for a business at that scale, for him to still believe that he gets a lot of leverage from writing organic posts to their followers, and then those followers interact in the comments, and then he has his team reach out and get them on the phone and close high-ticket sales that way. I think that's just a testament to the fact that I don't think there's a point where you won't have, if you have the systems in place, you can still have really great leverage and high ROI on these type of organic methods, even when you're already doing those type of massive numbers. Okay, so I wouldn't discount it. I wouldn't say that, I'm doing okay on my organic stuff. Now I should just take all that money and only do paid ads. I think they really, I think they can complement each other really well, especially when you're doing retargeting and using your organic stuff to qualify prospects. Like, if someone follows you, if they're engaging with your stuff organically, then those people are going to be way more qualified to buy from you, and it's going to make the economics of your retargeting campaigns so much better, right? because you're going to be doubling down on the folks who've already raised their hand. They've shown that they're interested. They know you. They know who you are. They know what you do. They like your ideas, right? So that's what I would recommend. And you can do, similar stuff with Twitter. Twitter doesn't have quite as advanced of a ad network as Facebook, but I would highly recommend following that approach where you use organic posting. And we're doing this very similarly with, these live streams, right? So Rich will post his live streams on his Facebook page. I didn't do that today. I just did it in the group, but we can take all the people who view these live streams and create lookalike audiences or retarget them as well. And that way we're creating free content that reaches folks, and then it qualifies them through the engagement, and then we can retarget them later on. And those campaigns are going to be more scalable, but also they're going to have the higher ROI because we're targeting just a much more qualified cohort of folks versus going straight to ice cold traffic with a brand new offer to someone who's never heard of us before or seen me before. I hope that helps answer your question. Let me read through this one more time just to make sure I kind of got it. At which point would you say is the right time to introduce some automation like a simple landing page, screening them in Calendly and getting them on call through paid ads? I mean, in terms of that stuff, if you're, like you said, a simple landing page, screening them in Calendly and getting them on a call through paid ads, I would start that right away, because you want at least some type of mechanism to monetize, especially if you're investing a lot of time organically, right? So if you're spending a lot of time on Twitter every day, it's going to feel really challenging to justify all the time you're spending if you don't have a mechanism to monetize, and it doesn't feel like the ROI is good, right? So if you have a high ticket offer, and you might be grinding a couple hours a day on it, but if you're able to, book, a handful of strategy sessions or meetings or, consults through that, then it makes it much more attractive from a time perspective. So I would, before you start tweeting 10 to 20 to 50 times a day, I would want to have some type of funnel like that set up. Like you said, a simple landing page to book a call. And I'm not sure what you mean by like getting them on a call through paid ads. But I would, okay. So I would not, if you're saying that you'd like to have a landing page and screen them on Calendly and get them on a call through paid ads to ice cold traffic, I wouldn't do that. I would not get someone on the phone who hasn't at least gone through a few steps to identify themselves as a hot buyer or a hot prospect, okay? Otherwise, you're probably going to get on the phone with a lot of people who are unqualified, and that's going to be an even bigger waste of your time than tweeting a ton, okay? But again, also, like you mentioned, you have 30 great students and entrepreneurs with results and 15 video testimonials. I would set up tweets or Facebook posts where you share those testimonials and talk about like the big takeaway that student had that unlocked the great results that they were able to achieve. And maybe you add those to your automation where every Friday you send out, maybe if you have 15 video testimonials, that's like 3 business weeks worth of tweets where each day you can be sending out a new testimonial that highlights and gives that social proof of what you're doing. And so, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have a new testimonial every week for 3 weeks, and then you just repeat that over again through the automated tweets. And that could be a great way to just like build social proof and credibility with the assets you have. And folks who engage with that, you can retarget them and then maybe get them on. So in terms of paid ads, if you're trying to get them on a coaching call, the only types of paid ads I would say would be effective to do that with would be retargeting. All right. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Andrew says, hey, Matt, this is not related to what you're discussing now, but another question. Russell Brunson in one of his books says, if you have your own website, you should have 3 separate first pages, one for your list, hot traffic, one for social media, warm traffic, and one for paid ads, cold traffic. Do you agree? Yeah, I think that's a really smart approach. I wouldn't use that as a barrier to get started though. Like if I don't only have one page set up, I wouldn't say, oh, you know what? I need to create 2 more pages before I start tweeting or before I start posting on Facebook or something like that. That I think that's a great strategy because he's absolutely right. Because, I guess with the first one, for example, you have to think about like what's going to be on that page for hot traffic. I guess if it's hot traffic, you should be sending people straight to a page that has all your offers on it, right? Because those are people who would want to buy. But again, you'd have to think about like why are you sending people who are already on your list back to your website? You know, what's the intention behind it? But the other 2 are totally agree with. One for social media, warm traffic, one for. I mean, you got to think about like. I think when it comes to the difference between those 2, like social media traffic, the warm versus the cold, those are different, and yeah, you could change the language of it, because people on social media already know you a little bit better. They know your credentials, they know your background, your track record, so that kind of stuff isn't as important, and you don't need all that introduction to who you are necessarily. But what I find, if you're really thinking about where your time is going to be most valuable, it's really going to be creating that page for cold traffic. And I would always start there, because worst case scenario, someone who's already on your list gets to a page that's designed for cold traffic. You're giving them more information than they need. And that's always a better situation than giving them not enough. Okay? So it's always a much safer approach. And this even applies to like when you're writing a sales page for a back-end product. Like sure, your product might not be going to cold traffic, but even if you write it as if it's going to cold traffic, it's not going to hurt your conversions going to an internal list. So that's the one caveat I would add to that, is that writing to cold traffic, writing as if the person doesn't know you, writing as if they don't know your background and your credentials and your track record and your unique mechanism and all that stuff, the testimonials, you know what I'm saying? So it's always much safer if you're going to lean one way or the other, always pretend you're writing to cold traffic, because at the end of the day, that's really not going to hurt you to your internal list. If they already love you, they already know who you are, they're warm to you, they'll read through that stuff again. It's only going to reaffirm the beliefs that they have about you. So, especially if you're just starting off and you only have so much time to build out a landing page, always lean to the side of writing it to people who are less aware, right? And that's the thing, like we were talking about the hierarchy of offers. It's easier to write to the internal list because A, it doesn't require as much copy, and B, it doesn't require your ideas to be like as sexy to grab their attention. They're just going to read your stuff anyways because they like who you are as a person, right? So it allows, like, it doesn't take a fantastic copywriter to write to an internal list versus someone who's writing to cold traffic. You need to be able to grab someone's attention who doesn't really want to give you their attention. Okay? And so you might as well always go err on the side of caution and try to write your copy, whether it's a sales page or an email or an opt-in page, tweets, write them as if you're talking to cold traffic, because it's really not going to hurt you if someone who's warm reads it, but it will hurt you if you're writing your copy as if everyone's warm and it gets in front of someone who's cold, right? So that'll be my recommendation on it, Andrew. Great question. Milos asks, he says, my experience with TNF, two-step funnel from the customer side, is that it becomes a bit disconnected when their sales guys ask you questions not related to the article you raised your hand for. But I guess it's the cost of scaling. Yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about there, Milos. I've gone through that myself with their sales process. I've met Chris and Taylor. They're fantastic guys, and I love their content. So I'm often writing in the comments, I want that report, and then I'll have to go through some hoops with someone through the messenger chat asking me about my business or scaling or something like that. And you're absolutely right. It is the cost of scaling, especially when you're using a in-house sales team. When you are a smaller operation and it's likely you who's the one answering those questions in Messenger, it's a lot easier because you know the context of everything of the content you're delivering. You're much more engaged and have your finger on the pulse of who the regular contributors are in your comments and who's the most active. Like, for example, in this Facebook group, I have a great idea of who the most engaged active people are. Obviously, you're one of them, Milos. You're on these live streams very often, so I appreciate you coming. And but like you said, it is a cost of scaling. But I would say they've done a very good job being able to scale to that height with a sales team, and obviously they have processes that allow that to happen. So there's gonna be growing pains, and each not when you have a human involved in the sales process, not every sales process is going to be identical. And that can be a weakness and a strength. So it's a weakness in the regard you've seen here. Like if you're talking to someone who's not the most adept and doesn't know exactly where you're coming from or speaking to the conversation that you're already having, it's going to hurt the sale. But it can also really help the sale if you have like really specific objections and stuff that wasn't answered in the copy. And that way, when you're talking to a sales rep or consultant on that side, then they're able to tailor the conversation and the sales copy around your specific unique situation, right? So that's one of the disadvantages of copy, is that if you don't answer all the questions, or if you don't position the copy specifically for the one person who's reading it, then it might not resonate, right? But if you do have a sales team, or if you're the person following up with folks, then personally, I love following up with folks myself, because it allows you as the business owner or the copywriter or the offer owner to understand what the big objections are that your audience has to the copy, and you're able to work that into your copy and your sales process later on, and then also help build a better product or come up with new ideas for products that you hadn't thought of before, because you didn't realize how important certain components might be for your ideal customer. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, there's definitely growing pains with scaling when you have a human sales team like that, and you're not just using copy as your closing mechanism. But there's definitely some advantages too, especially with high ticket. Most people do not want to. It's going to be hard for you to close a $10,000 sale, a $15,000 sale, $20,000 sale with a sales page. Okay, you might have answered all the objections in the world, but the advantage to having a sales team that's either your self-closing or a small in-house team or whatnot is dramatic when you have the high ticket offers and you're able to actually talk to people on the phone, overcome their objections, show them how your product is going to help their situation specifically, and then close and then create that urgency that really helps when you're actually talking to a real person versus feeling like you have all the time in the world when you're sitting on your laptop and you're reading a sales letter or you're watching a sales video. All right. All right, so Stefan, I had a follow-up here. So growing Facebook group, giving value on YT, and growing that community, and also continuing to grow my community on IG and engage with people is more powerful than throwing a small fishnet, $20, $30 in the form of Facebook ads and hoping for results there. I would agree. When there's a 5 to 10K consistently from the manual lead gen, maybe only then try with fishnet, since I'll be able to throw more money into them. Is that the gist of it? Yeah, I would say that you definitely want to have the back end offer, because scaling a $20 to $30 offer from Facebook ads is really, really challenging to cold traffic. One more caveat I want to give you though is it sounds like you're talking about growing the Facebook group and giving value on YouTube and also growing your community on Instagram. I personally believe in focus, right? If I'm on social media, I want to pick one channel and crush it, okay? It sounds like you're trying to do too much across multiple channels. And so I would figure out what channel are you getting the most traction from and you feel like you have the most resonance in your community. And I would double down all my efforts on that. Okay, I get a little. I was just yelling at Rich the other day. He was like, "Yeah, man, we needed to do a better job writing title descriptions for our YouTube videos, because he usually takes these live streams and then rebroadcasts them on YouTube, which I'm fine with, because it's like, that's all right. We can do that with an automation and send it to YouTube." But he's like, "Yeah, we got to be thinking about the SEO impact of these titles." I'm like, man, we're not even leveraging Facebook nearly as well as we can be. Traffic and funnels business, this like all Facebook is all they do, right? And that's like a 9-figure business. I'm like, Rich, I do not want to even think about YouTube. I do not want to think about Instagram. I don't want to think about Twitter until we have Facebook crushing it. Okay. And when I was doing my business, I felt the same way. So I was like, I was only Twitter. I could have been just rebroadcasting that stuff to a million different platforms, and a lot of people do that stuff, but I'd much rather focus on one core channel where I'm only going to create content there, and I'm just going to double down on that one channel and focus on that. And I think having that kind of focus, for me, I've always just achieved the best results when I'm really drilling down on one medium, like when I was doing Twitter, and now, for our business, I want that to be Facebook. Like it's okay, fine. We'll rebroadcast them to YouTube, but I don't want to be wasting resources on another channel until we have Facebook dialed in, until we're growing consistently and we're monetizing it well and we're doing all the retargeting and we're doing everything we know we should be doing, right? Until you reach that point, and you have all this extra money sloshing around the business, I would not venture out into all these other channels. All right, it's very easy to get seduced into thinking like, oh, I need to grow by just adopting a new channel. If you're not following best practices and you're not doing everything you can be doing already in the one channel that you should be focused on. The one exception to that is email. I think email is just additive to any business. So whatever you're doing, you should always be doing email, but email should complement this is specific to social media. So pick one social media platform and try to generate a large following there, publish on it every single day, multiple times a day if possible. Obviously YouTube, it's hard to have multiple highly produced videos, but YouTube, publish every day, right? Put out a video every single day, or whatever channel you're doing it on, and focus on creating extreme, the engagement should be your number one priority, not necessarily the potential reach by putting the same piece of content on a million channels. All right, I know we sometimes violate that belief, but that's what I believe pretty hardcore, and I think most people would get a lot more benefit by doubling down on the one social media channel that's working the best for them, instead of trying to constantly add new channels to their strategy. All right. Smilo said, yeah, it's awesome in regards to TNF. It's awesome for a solo operator. I admire their process. Totally agree. I have nothing but respect for those guys. They're really sharp. Steven says, man, if I had your brain, I would have my business thriving exponentially in 2 months. Thanks for the answers. Absolutely, man. No problem. I'm glad you're getting a lot of value out of it. I appreciate the compliment, man. I'm definitely going to screenshot that one and save that for my my little gratitude journal. You also said, Stephen, let's see here. How do I pop this back? There we go. Meant to ask this today, ask to Rich this today. Since nobody's asking questions, you can answer this if you want. Your experiences with modafinil. And did you ever try microdosing using it? I can't say Rich's experience. I can tell you that when we did the 24-hour live stream, Rich slipped me some modafinil, which is Provigil. Provigil is like the prescription, the brand name. But yeah, it keeps you wide awake. What I liked about modafinil is that I didn't have jitters. It was a very clean experience where it didn't feel like my heart was racing, or it didn't feel like I just took a bunch of cups of coffee. It just felt like, it was, I guess like 6 or 7. Actually, I got a little pissed because he gave me a modafinil, and one of my coworkers, she was like, "You should take it now." I'm like, "No, I'd rather just wait until I really need it." And I took it at like, I don't know, 10 or 11. And then, it doesn't last like all day long. So by 6 in the morning or whatever, I was beat. I was pounding cups of coffee and trying my best to stay awake. Rich was just a machine, and I don't know how he did. We kept bringing him Monster energy drinks, and he was good to go. But yeah, I would. Obviously I don't have nearly as much experience as Ryan does, and I would be. I definitely wouldn't take it right before bed, like Rich was talking about. Like he on the live stream before, he was talking about like taking the modafinil, then going to sleep, and then you wake up energized. I'm like, dude, you're crazy. But yeah, if you need to power through, I could see that being effective. Again, I am not a physician, nor do I play one on TV. So take everything I have said with a grain of salt and do your own research. But I would just say, in my experience using modafinil for that 24-hour live stream, it does work. It doesn't last all day long, but it was a very, I've taken, similar to Rich, I was prescribed Ritalin and Concerta and Vyvanse as a kid because, I got diagnosed with ADD, and I couldn't stand taking Ritalin. I lost so much weight. I didn't eat much. I got really, really thin, and the being on Ritalin made me feel very anxious. I felt very a lot of anxiety taking it, and so I just stopped taking it because I didn't like how it made me feel. But none of that, I had none of that experience on modafinil. All right, y'all. It is 3:48. Wow, we're actually going on 2 hours now. I'm always shocked when Rich does a live stream for 2 hours. But you know what? With y'all asking questions and the participation, which I really appreciate, that wasn't so bad. Time kind of flew. So I'll give it. I'll do like a pretend I'm the auctioneer, going once, going twice. If y'all have any more questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll call it a day. All right, folks. Great chatting with y'all. Thanks for coming to the live stream. Rich will be back in action on Thursday. I promise. All right. Take care. See ya.